producing job seriously.
She does.
And so
she does. It's no joke.
Yeah, and so the camel told the Bedouin.
They already heard you talking. It's not going to work, Patrick.
Damn it! Crap. I was, I thought I would. Yeah.
Thought you could just, you thought you could pull the wool over the camel's
think
eyes. I get it.
No, but I think this is problematic because we kind of unveiled the fact that it isn't. I'm not actually telling you a joke as you.
No, but see, most of the time he is, folks.
Right, exactly.
Here we go. Ready?
I was born ready.
At the end of the day, making free content doesn't come cheap. Show your support for the independent content you're listening to right now at patreon.com/AceDetect. That's patreon.com/ACEDTECT.
This is, in fact, the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Patrick Beja, our regular co-conspirator of all things tech, independent podcaster, host of Pixels and more. How's it going, Patrick?
Oh, it's going excellent, and even better now that I have this wonderful title I can put on my business card. Thank you. They get better every time.
Yeah. It's going to be a long business card after a few more of these shows. I apologize for that.
Yes, because I do put all of the titles you bestow on me on my business card, but it's worth it.
It is. It's absolutely worth it. Hey, Patrick, do you know what time it is?
I think it's Pebble Time.
It's 1:32, actually. We'll talk about Pebble Time, though, a little later in the show. You're right about that. Let's get into the headlines first, though. Pebble launched a new watch called Pebble Time on Kickstarter this morning, raising $1 million in 49 minutes. That is an incredible hourly rate. It is, in fact, the fastest Kickstarter project to get to $1 million ever. The watch features a color e-ink screen, a microphone, and a new interface called Timeline that shows you information in chronological order rather than in an app interface. Kickstarter backers will get a discount depending on how early they get into the Kickstarter and should start receiving their watches in May. The rest of us who don't choose to back the Kickstarter in the next 31 days will pay $199 at retail, and they will start shipping to retail a few months after the May shipping begins.
Yeah, pretty amazing thing. Well, I'm looking forward to discussing it in a little while. Microsoft launched a new OneDrive API on GitHub, according to VentureBeat. The new API works across Windows, Android, iOS, and the web, and improves on both speed and functionality. Feature highlights include the ability to resume upload files up to 10 gigabytes, customizable thumbnail images for files, and the ability to keep large sets of files synced with minimal calls.
Yeah, this is Microsoft delivering on their promise and their continuing efforts to say, we are going to make our services available on all platforms and make our platforms work with all services.
Yeah, they're all in. It's very refreshing and strange to witness at the same time when you've been following Microsoft for a little while.
Well, and it is the kind of thing when I read about this, I'm like, okay, file resuming, customizable thumbnails, not so big a deal for me, but large sets of file sync more quickly and efficiently. It starts to make me think, Dropbox provides me a lot of these features already myself, but maybe I should look closer at my OneDrive account, see if it's worth shifting my focus, because I do keep a free version of that account around. Why wouldn't you? It's free storage, but I don't rely on it. So it, gets it back into your head as a viable competitor.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. I think it's to put it back in the offering as a potential competitor, which they're doing pretty successfully now.
And I don't mean to say it hasn't been a viable competitor. It has, but this is the kind of like, hey, we're not just letting it coast. We're adding new features, that kind of thing, and it gets it in developers' heads too. Of like, hey, when you're making that Dropbox button in your app, you should put a OneDrive button in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say it wasn't as much of a viable competitor even a year ago. This is a new thing for OneDrive even.
GigaOM reports that Steve Perlman's Artemis Networks is building a network using its P-cell technology. I think we've mentioned this on the show before. It will cover most of San Francisco with unlimited LTE data and voice using the Dish Network spectrum. The ultimate goal is to sell the technology to carriers. To that end, Artemis will sell the Artemis One hub that will let carriers test P-cells in their own networks. Artemis is also releasing a detailed white paper this week to answer a lot of questions and criticisms about the science behind the technology. For San Francisco's test, Artemis needs to build some core infrastructure to handle calls and texts and data. They need to get an MVNO agreement and FCC approval. So a tall list of things that they got to do. And then, hopefully by the autumn, they'll be able to sell SIM cards to people.
Unlimited LTE data. How are they going to do that? Especially in San Francisco.
The way the P-cells work is they don't have to be separated. Current cellular technology, as I understand it, oversimplifying, works by not overlapping. You place the cells so that they cover an area and then they hand off to each other. The P-cells work by taking advantage of the fact that they can be put anywhere, and they sort of sync with each other, and they don't worry about interfering over the same geographical area, which provides you better coverage. And he showed demonstrations where he can have as many cell phones running off of one of these devices as possible, which you couldn't do on a regular cell.
Interesting. TechCrunch reports that voice and SMS company Twilio has acquired two-factor authentication company Authy. About 6,000 sites use Authy now. Nothing will change for those users for the moment, and Twilio users will soon have an easy way to add two-factor authentications to their Twilio-powered services.
Yeah, I think this is more concerning for Authy users. Twilio users are probably psyched. Like, they won't have to roll their own 2FA anymore if they're using Twilio. Twilio lets you add SMS and voice to your product so that people can, within your app, for, let's say, send text messages and make voice calls, etc. It's a pretty cool company. But if you wanted to do two-factor login integrated into your Twilio, you had to build it yourself. Well, now you won't. It's an added feature. If you're an Authy user, though, you might wonder, like, is Twilio going to change anything down the road? But for now, Twilio is saying, no, we're not going to change anything. We're going to keep Authy being Authy. You know what they say. It's just Authy being Authy. Also, it's a bad day for people who want to post nude pictures of other people. Google announced that starting March 23rd, users of Blogger, its blogging service, will not be allowed to share images and video that are sexually explicit or show graphic nudity. Such blogs will be made private so that only the admins can see them. And if you start a blog after March 23rd with such content, it may be deleted. Exceptions will be made for material that, quote, offers a substantial public benefit, for example, in artistic, educational, documentary, or scientific contexts, end quote. Meanwhile, Engadget reports Reddit's latest security policy prohibits posting photos or videos of naked people or people having sex without their consent.
It's a really interesting thing. I mean, I've seen a few reactions in France to the Blogger policy specifically. Basically somewhat outraged, or not outraged, but upset at the fact that it was basically Google imposing its morality on the content, which I respond to, it's Google. That's what they wanted. It's their property. They can do what they want. It's not like you would accuse a magazine of deciding what goes in or doesn't go into the magazine if they chose to exercise their right to, do that. At the same time, I understand that the Puritanism of America influencing such an influential platform and international platform as Blogger can raise eyebrows. I know it's very reminiscent of Apple's policy of trying to keep out nudity of their a lot of their cultural offerings, which has led to some surprising things happening in the stores. In this case, though, it seems like they just want to keep explicitly sexual content, and they are keeping in a broad exception for artistic, educational, and documentary or scientific contexts. It seems like they're doing it the right way, but yeah, it's interesting to think about from a different culture's point of view.
Listen, Patrick, I understand there's a place in France where the naked bloggers dance. That's the way you do it there.
So how long have you been waiting to do that?
About 25 seconds. I don't agree that this is Google's platform and they can do what they want, like a magazine. I do agree it's Google's platform and they can do what they want, like a publisher, right? If I have a printing press and you come to me and say, I want to print this porn, I can say, no, I don't want to print porn on my printing press. And that's essentially what Google's doing. It's a subtle point, but I think it's an important one because it does open yourself up to a little more criticism of you're controlling lots of messages, not just your own. But I also agree that if you are going to do this, instead of changing from an adult awareness warning to we're just not going to allow explicit or graphic imagery, is a step closer to censorship, but it's not a big one. It's not a huge leap, and I think that's what you're saying.
I think I would be a lot more concerned about this if Blogger was the only way to publish something on the internet. As long as it's easy enough to even self-host your content and you can do that, then I'm kind of okay with this.
Absolutely.
The aptly or wonderfully named OMG Chrome reports Google's Renee Naimi announced that a second-generation Chromebook Pixel will be on sale, quote-unquote, soon, but that Google would only make a small number of them. The Pixel laptop is aimed primarily at developers and won't be marketed to regular consumers. The laptop will reportedly keep the 12.85-inch screen, feature reversible Type-C USB ports, and may be the first device to ship with Chromium's new Freon pseudo-display server replacement.
I wanted to order the first Pixel, and then I came to my senses because it was ridiculously expensive. But it is a great machine. I know Jeff Jarvis loved his when he first got it. So I'll be interested to see. I'm interested to see what this is. I'm also interested to note that they're continuing to do it. They must have had enough success with developers that they're willing to roll it out there again. I'm also curious how much they're going to charge for it.
Yeah, I think everyone had mixed reactions to the concept of the Chromebook. A lot of people were. The Pixels was a wonderfully designed version of this, but I also think as mixed as the reactions were on Chromebooks in general, I don't think I've heard a single person having had the Pixel in their hands and saying it wasn't great. Everyone loved it, so
yeah,
maybe it's a niche product, but people love it.
The Verge passes along a report from The Hill, that is the blog The Hill, that FCC Commissioner Minion Clyburn would like to see some adjustments made to Commissioner Wheeler's proposal for open internet rules. Apparently, Clyburn takes issue with the provision that could allow Title II regulation to be applied to interconnection agreements, such as those between ISPs and content providers like Netflix. Clyburn would prefer the regulation be limited to only the explicitly mentioned relationships between consumers and ISPs.
Recode reports Magic Leap CEO Roni Abovitz took to Reddit for Ask Me Anything. It did not mean, however, he would answer. Among the teasers about his mysterious product, Abovitz said Magic Leap would mean the world would no longer need physical screens, laptops, smartphones, or even smartwatches. He also indicated stereoscopic solutions to VR like Oculus and Project Morpheus may be unsafe. He also said Magic Leap hopes to get prototypes in developers' hands this year.
This company really knows how to get press. I think the reason it caught my eye, the reason they suckered me in was that they said, hey, we're going to get it in developers' hands this year. And that's the CEO of Magic Leap saying it, not some leak. So it's a fact that they would like to do that. Doesn't mean they are, but that seems to be the aim.
Yeah, there was an article on the MIT Technology Review, I believe, about Magic Leap. I think the person had it in their hands or on their head, and they were a little bit more. They were basically saying, I think implying it is indeed something that beams, images into your on your retina directly. But yeah, it is definitely a fascinating company, and I will be very amused and not even disappointed if it ends up being something trivial. They've built up so much hype with such skill that it will be just amusing.
I don't think it will be trivial. I think the worst case scenario is it just doesn't work as well as we have all been led to believe. I mean, he's out there saying you won't need physical screens. In a world with the Magic Leap, you won't even need a physical screen. That's a tall order. That's a
Yeah,
huge
it does
promise.
sound a little bit like hyperbole, but
It makes me think of Steve Jobs saying, Dean Kamen's new secret project will cause us to re-architect whole cities. Didn't even really cause us to re-architect malls, where the Segway is used most. So, time now for some news from you. This comes from our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. DJ Sakani sent us this story from USA Today about the United States 911 emergency network having problems reliably locating calls that come from cell phones. And according to the story, 911's chance of getting a fix on your location can range from anywhere as low as 10% up to as high as 95%, depending on where you are. The FCC is working in conjunction with the 4 largest cell phone carriers to address the issue, including new rules for carriers to transmit location data, with deadlines for delivery of location data for 40% of cell phone calls by 2017 and 80% by 2021. The problem is that 911 system relies on the carrier to locate the phone. So the 911 system queries the carrier, which sends out, looks at its database, and if it can't locate the phone, it will try to triangulate it from the antenna. Meanwhile, apps like Google and Facebook, you're like, they seem to know where I am all the time. They use GPS in your phone. Thing is, not all phones have a GPS sensor even still. Most do, many more do, but it'll take a lot longer for 911 to try to integrate that kind of app into its system than to work with the cell phone carriers here. So they are pursuing both, apparently, though.
Do you think we need manufacturers or OS developers to ask us for an allowance to allow the phone to transmit the GPS data to 911 directly?
No, you already. I think in the United States that permission is already legal. Like that, it's already implicit that you would want that in an emergency situation. I could be wrong about that, but I'm basing that on the idea that 911 can already ask the carrier for your location based on the fact that you called them. So I don't think it's a permission thing; it's a technological thing.
So maybe the OS should automatically transmit the location to the service, but I guess there's an infrastructure thing there.
It's coming up with that technical solution. But yeah, I think you're right. That would be the most efficient way to do it.
Star Fury's data wants you to know that the next Uber may be Waffle House. The Verge reports that the U.S. diner chain is partnering with a company called Roadie that lets travelers earn money by delivering packages. Users can now meet at the company's 1,750 diners across the U.S. Drivers making deliveries will get a free waffle and a drink. Have
you ever been to a Waffle House?
I haven't, but now I want to.
There are a few. I don't know how close to Anaheim they are, which is where I usually see you. But I'm going to try to take you to a Waffle House. Waffle House is one of the best things in the world.
Do you think we could deliver something for them at the same time? And
maybe instead of having your packages delivered to my house next year, you could just have them delivered to the Waffle House. No, I love this idea. It kind of reminds me of the email we got the other day of the guy who noted that his local sheriff's office was allowing the lobby of the sheriff's department to be used for Craigslist transactions. It's like the Waffle House is like, look, you may not want this person from Roadie knowing your home address yet, so you trust them with your package, but not your home address. Come to the Waffle House. They'll get a free waffle. You'll get your package. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, it makes sense. Have you heard about that? Not even a startup, but that weird thing that happened over the weekend called Magic.
That's just a thing that happens in the world.
Yeah, no, okay.
Magic.
It's a kind of a company. It's a guy who started.
Oh no, I didn't hear about this.
It's a kind of it's a guy who started this as almost as a joke over the weekend in San Francisco. He had an SMS number. He would get people's requests, like an Uber for everything. He would just get people's requests saying, would can you deliver a pizza, or can you get me a shaker, or can you get someone to take my dog out, or whatever. And he would study the thing with his team and respond with the cost, and they would say whether or not they wanted.
That sounds like TaskRabbit. That's what TaskRabbit
kind of. Except they would do it themselves, so there would be a consistency in the quality of the thing. It was their team, and they went from obviously a couple of requests to like 20,000 in a weekend. So I don't know how it's going to evolve, but
because TaskRabbit has its own team also.
Does it? It does. Do they actually fulfill the request?
Yeah,
Maybe.
they vet
Oh, okay.
the rabbits or whatever they call them. I don't know if they call them rabbits, but
Vetting the rabbits, and we have a title.
we have so many titles already. Abituela Condolce sent us the Reuters report that the National Association of African American-owned media have filed a $20 billion lawsuit Friday in Los Angeles against Comcast and Time Warner Cable for allegedly discriminating against African American-owned media and paying advocates from the African American community to prevent them from interfering. In other words, they're alleging they tried to buy people off. Same group filed a $10 billion lawsuit in December against AT&T and DirecTV. You may notice here, Comcast, Time Warner, AT&T, and DirecTV, both suits come in relation to proposed media mergers. And that is a look at the headlines. All right, it's Pebble time. $10,159 units gone. And Patrick, you did the math on this. I was impressed. Like, you went through and said, okay, folks, if they're coming to Kickstarter, we know they even said in an interview with Stephen Levy, like, we don't need Kickstarter to fund this. We're trying to figure out the best way to launch, and going back to the people who got us here in the first place. Remember, it was April 2012 when Pebble launched on Kickstarter. They felt was the best way to do this. But you did the math about like how many Pebbles must be out there just for this Kickstarter round.
Yeah, so basically they have limits on all of their perks. All of them are basically getting those new models. We'll talk about them in a minute. But all of them have limits, and it's different levels of buying them for a little bit cheaper, buying them in bulk, up to 30 of them at the same time. So basically, this is a pre-sale operation for the Pebbles, and they have currently they're at almost 6 million, but the maximum amount they are going to get to with the number of devices they have for sale effectively is 9.5 million, if I did the math correctly, which I might have messed up. But 9.5, I think they're going to max out in a day. It's staggering, and that is only, quote-unquote, 56,000 units. So it's not that much, considering they sold 1 million since the company started, but it's such amazing publicity. It's such a marketing genius, event, and the speed at which it's taking off is honestly staggering. They reached their goal of 500,000 in 17 minutes. How long does it take for the thing to go live and to be publicized for them to sell for $500,000 worth of smartwatches? 17 minutes. It's mind-boggling.
My guess is, and they're doing a cool thing here, by the way. If you are a backer of the first Pebble Kickstarter and you order one of the Pebble Time off of this Kickstarter, you will get a special engraving. Only for those double backers. So they probably told those backers, hey guys, we're about to launch a second Kickstarter for the new Pebble Time. Go check it out, right? That helps get people who are already enthusiastic about the product in the door. But even so, 17 minutes is crazy time.
They didn't pre-announce it, I don't think. We knew it was kind of coming, but we didn't know it was going to come on Kickstarter. So even if they sent the email when they launched the thing, it's a very quick response time. I mean,
they're about to tick over 6 million right now.
Yeah.
It's 1:53 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, and they have 28,687 backers.
And I think they're gonna max it out.
89 backers.
I think they're going to max it out. There's very little doubt, and I think they're going to expend it. I think they have to, it's insured money in the bank, and then they only have to produce the goods. Which, by the way, we've seen so many Kickstarter horror stories in the past few months. This is a Kickstarter dream story because they know what they're doing. The product is essentially done. They've said it themselves. It's basically finalized, and they know how to work the thing. They know how to use Kickstarter. They know they have earned the trust of their community, and their community is very much behind them. And on top of that, I think the thing that we're kind of overlooking, even in this amazing story of Kickstarter success, is the fact that the product they're presenting is pretty darn amazing. The evolution between the original Pebble and this one, I don't know if you want to go over what
yeah,
the
let's
Pebble Time is,
let's talk a little bit about what this actually is. I mean, I told you briefly about it in the headlines, but same 7-day battery life, e-ink, but color e-ink, stainless steel body. It's 20% thinner. It's got a smart accessory port for sensors and smart straps. Sorry. All of that is great, and that enough would, I think, get a lot of people excited about this. But what's really interesting is the change in the metaphor, and the way Eric Mijakovsky says it when he was talking to Stephen Levy, who published this on Medium. They had the head start because they've been doing this. I mean, Eric's been doing it since 2008. And so they've been thinking about this app-based approach for a long time and realized, there should be a better way. So they had a big brainstorming session, and out of it came this new interface that they call Timeline. The top button on your Pebble takes you backward in time. And so you'll see things like an email that just came in, or maybe a sports score, or your step count. The middle button is connected to your apps, and will tell you what apps are connected to the phone. And by the way, no more 8-app limit. They'll cache and connect to apps as needed, so you have an unlimited amount of apps you can connect. And then the bottom button goes forward in time. So if you have an appointment coming up, or you need to set an alarm, or the weather, you want to check what the weather's going to be in the next day. So you don't go into the apps to access information anymore. You move along the timeline.
So well, the middle button can give you more information about the piece of information that you're displaying in that timeline if you want to. So it's not limited to that amount. And there's also, that was my first concern, there's also the apps metaphor that's still there. It's just one button away. And this is really something interesting because it rethinks as you're saying, the UI and the metaphor. As it makes sense for this very specific interface, and I'm not quite 100% sure this is the amazing thing that they're saying it is, because honestly I've never used a smartwatch, so I'm still a little bit outside of this thing, but. It does definitely look different and interesting, and it looks like it makes sense, which already is more than I've been, than I've seen with many other smartwatches. You said though that this metaphor is the most interesting thing about the watch. To me, there's something that's even more incredible, and that's the e-paper screen. The color display is actually, maybe it's my failing, I didn't realize that the color e-paper had been getting so good, but the refresh rate it looks like a regular screen, which I didn't realize e-paper could do in color.
I'm holding out judgment till I see the thing in real life before I go crazy about the color e-paper. Although people, companies as big as Amazon have eschewed color e-paper for their e-ink devices because they couldn't get it to work to their satisfaction. And Pebble is not a company that cheats on this stuff. So it must be good enough to work on a watch, would be my guess. Remember, you're not looking at video. It's not a touch screen. That's not what the Pebble is about. So it is limited in some respects.
It definitely looks like the refresh rate is comparable to an LCD screen. And they showed it to a bunch of people, including The Verge, and it didn't seem like they were saying, well, it doesn't work that well. They were showing the videos and weren't noticing actually in real life it doesn't work like this. And the animations that it allows them to do, their designers were saying things like, we don't just swipe from one element to the other. We transform, some of the graphical elements into one into the other because it provides some sense of flow for the interface. And that's something that I honestly didn't think was possible for the kinds of displays that allows you for a 7-day battery, which is the key issue people have with those kinds of wearables. So it is really amazing in more than one respect, this new prototype. I really hope it lives up to the expectations.
And another part of this timeline interface that impresses me, because Pebble has always had an open API and anybody can develop for it, they go cross-platform, they work on iOS and Android. They've always pushed that as one of their advantages over other watches, right? You can't use Android Wear with your iOS. You can't use your Apple Watch with an Android, but you can use Pebble with both. developers can now push pins into a timeline straight from the web. You don't even have to install an app. They don't have to develop an app. You can actually just send information with your permission. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but you can say like, yeah, I want that weather service to send me weather alerts, and then they don't have to develop an app. They can just send a pin right into your timeline. If I'm understanding that right, I think that is incredible, because not incredible in that I don't believe it can happen, but it's great because that's the way the internet should work. You shouldn't always have to install software to make something like that happen.
Yeah, I agree, and they're really coming at this in a very clever way. I think again, it was in the interview by The Verge. They were asking Michikovsky, which I would like to call Magikovsky because it's cooler. Do you think there is a room for a third player in the smart watch market? And he was saying, yes, of course there is a place, and we've been doing this for a long time, and we have a different offering, blah blah blah. I almost want to say I'm wondering if I'm not sold on smartwatches yet, but it's the most compelling offering I've seen in this field, more than Android Wear, more than the Apple Watch, and I think they could even be the ones that are getting it right. I'm wondering if there is a need for a smartwatch somewhere on this earth. I'm wondering if they aren't the ones that are fulfilling that need in the right way. So it's maybe not for me. I mean, there's someone on Twitter, Mathieu Perrault, I have to quote him. He basically said, in spite of all my enthusiasm, and it is real for this device, he said something that resonated with me, which was, it does look really good, but if I didn't already have a watch I didn't wear, I would get one. And I think that's where the thing breaks down a little bit, the fantasy breaks down, but it's definitely the thing that is the most compelling I've seen in this entire field, and I think they have a shot at actually owning it. They're now a mature company, and yeah, I'm not convinced by the Apple Watch yet. Of course, I haven't seen it, but it could be much bigger than they even are currently.
I think that reaction is the right reaction for any of these watches, which is, I already have a watch, or I would get that one, right? In other words, you shouldn't be making people who already have watches want to get a new watch. You should be saying, hey, this watch expands on what you want a watch for. I almost think that that's a better reaction than like, oh, I just want to get that because it's a hot new thing. You know what I mean? I want to quote Mijikovsky speaking to Stephen Levy on the Medium post back channel. Mijikovsky said, "We are not building a watch for a person who has a Rolex," meaning Apple. He says, "We are not building a watch for a scuba diver. We are building something for people who want to get bleep done." And I think that's the magic of Pebble, is he's designing watches for people who want to wear watches, not designing watches that make you want some kind of magical thing. And I'm not even saying that wanting a magical thing is a bad thing. Apple may be very successful. In fact, they will be very successful, I'm sure, selling that kind of proposition. But I think this is a more fundamental need, because people have always wanted watches to solve particularly practical problems like, what time is it? And that's what Pebble's doing. They're saying, hey, you know what? Other things related to time, we'll handle that for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's probably the right way to go. It does pain me a little bit, though, to see that it still kind of looks like a toy. And I was surprised to see that it's actually stainless steel. The frame is stainless steel, and it kind of looks like plastic still. And that's kind of too bad. But you know, the Kickstarter, it had just broke $6 million, and they are still currently raking in over $7,000 per minute. So yeah, good on them.
That's crazy.
It's a great story. It's a heartwarming tech story. I want them to succeed. And you know, $200, I might even get one just to check it out. They might have convinced.
Well, you've still got 31 days or 30 and a half days in this Kickstarter, so you might as well get one at a discount if you decide.
I don't think, there's how many? 4,000 left for $180. I don't think they're going to be left for very long.
Oh, they'll add more. I bet you, though. I think you're right
probably,
about that, because you said that earlier. Our pick of the day comes from Steve in the OC, who says it's a good time to remind people that it is safer to update your Java and other free apps using ninite.com instead of some of the native update programs. Notably, the Java updater installs adware or toolbar software. People will quibble with Steve's use of safer. But yeah, if you don't want to deal with adware in your Java update, you might want to check it out. ninite.com. Thanks for the pick, Steve. You can send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and my picks are available at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. All right, we have some errata to deal with, not with an C at the end, just ERRATA. Mark from Detroit said, a quick note to say that Google's inbox in Chrome is a great way to process email if you like using shortcuts. Many are the same that exist in regular Gmail when enabled, and you can operate on groups of emails much faster. Check it out at inbox.google.com, and I'm looking forward to being able to control grouping through Google at work since the consumer version is rather vanilla. A lot of people took something I said yesterday to imply that there is no desktop version of Google Inbox. I apologize for that. I think I misphrased. I just meant to mean that Google definitely is marketing this thing towards the mobile usage of the apps of Inbox. But yeah, as Mark points out, a lot of people do like to use it on the desktop. Joe in hot yesterday, freezing today, Baton Rouge, said that Filippo.io's test is very nice and very user-friendly, but if you're a geek and want to do the testing yourself, you can head over to grc.com/fingerprints.htm and compare the fingerprints there with the fingerprint of the actual certificate in your browser, thanks to Steve Gibson. So definitely go check that out. Joe said, I'm really eager to hear Steve Gibson's thoughts on the new Superfish Komodia findings, but until then, I wonder if we're overreacting. Superfish runs on your PC, so any TLS decryption interception that's happening can only be read by other software in your PC. Joe, I am eager to hear what Steve has to say too, so you might want to check out twit.tv/SN Security Now to find out what Steve actually does think about this. But one thing I would point out to Joe is, yes, Superfish runs on your PC, and so does your browser, and that's where it gets dicey. I wrote Joe back directly, but essentially anybody who knows you have one of these certificates can pretend to be your bank through your browser. And if they can trick you into visiting that website and you look and you see a lock, you might give them your credentials if you're not paying attention.
And it's also, I think a lot of people are overreacting or reacting strongly, not to the fact that this attack as, or security issue, as security issues go, is mind-boggling. It's just that it comes from Lenovo, doing the things they did with Superfish. So that's more where the exuberance comes from, I think.
Good point. Otto, my organization's reluctant PCI compliance lackey, is what he calls himself, wanted to clarify something I said backwards on last week's show. I totally got it wrong. He said, based on my understanding of the situation, it's actually the opposite of the way you said it. Right now, Visa and MasterCard accept liability for fraudulent charges, and that's why the issuing banks and the merchants have had no incentive to roll out EMV/chip cards and readers. Going forward, the liability will shift from Visa and MasterCard to either the bank or the merchant if one or the other does not support chip and pin/EMV. So if Citibank issues a Visa and they don't put a chip on that card, they are responsible, they meaning Citibank. If a mom and pop store accepts a Visa with a chip through their old swipe terminal, they're responsible for the fraudulent charges. With that in mind, I have no idea how LootPay plans to navigate those waters, says Otto. But thank you, Otto, for explaining it properly. My problem in explaining it is I was only saying bank and customer, and I was leaving out the processor, which is Visa and MasterCard. So appreciate the clarification. Thank you for that. And that's it for our show. Not Patrick on Twitter, twitter.com/notpatrick. What will they find there next?
Ooh, that's I don't know the future, and I never know what I'm going to say next on Twitter. So come find out at twitter.com/notpatrick. But also, if you want to go back in time, as you can with the Pebble Time by pressing the button on the up side of the thing, you can go listen to Pixels, which is a show I do about video games. And on the episode we recorded today, we had Garrett Weinzroll, which some of you might know, but also Ollie Welsh, the editor from Eurogamer.net, the site that recently decided to do away with scores in reviews for games. And we got to pick his brains about the decision, and we had a great discussion about this, about how Steam machines, which are going to be reintroduced rather, at GDC, could have benefits compared to consoles and other devices, and Peter Molyneux and a bunch of things. So if you enjoy this kind of discussion that we're having on this show, I think you'll enjoy Pixels. You can find it at FrenchSpin.com.
And for those who don't know Garrett Weinzierl, host of The Angry Chicken, TACpodcast.com.
That tells you
which,
something.
if you're into Hearthstone, you're missing out if you're not subscribed. Go do that.
All
right.
I got back into Hearthstone because of him, and I'm happy.
Thank you to the 4,855 patrons. We are less than $1,500 away from Scott and Veronica goal, which means we're halfway there. We can get one of them. We're 145 patrons away from 5,000 patrons. So inspired by Patrick's math earlier, could 145 patrons get us to $1,600? That would break down to $10.30. That's a little pricey. We usually only ask people for $1 a month. But what if there are 145 people out in the audience who want to become first-time co-executive producers of DTNS? And what if 145 current Patreons gave just 30 cents more a month? Then, if both those things happen, we could assemble our Tech Avengers officially, because if they can't protect technology reporting, you can be damn sure they'll avenge it. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can call us 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. And listen to the show live at TuneIn, alphageekradio.com. Our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Chris Ashley from the SMR podcast. Talk to you then.
more information about this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
I was born ready. I even already have my Tech Avengers catchphrase.
Exactly.
Yay. Unmute Roger.
Thank you. Hi, Roger.
Hey, Roger. He's still muted.
He muted
Hey,
himself.
Jim.
There you go.
Makes an interesting point, which is while we have not reached our goal yet, you have pointed out that we reached half our goal, which means sort of technically we could have maybe Scott and Veronica on once a month.
I was actually thinking about that in the shower today. I could be like, well, we could have each of them on once a month or one of them on twice a month.
Yeah. Anyway, food for thought.
Yeah.
Or just take one. Just hire one. Half the goal.
I mean, honestly, the math doesn't work out exactly that way. This is more of a goal to, frankly, get us back on track once we get to the end. But I'd be fine with that. We could do that.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, was I breaking up a little bit during the show because you were on my end?
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Oh, okay, cool. Phew. All right.
I mean, you weren't to me. I didn't mean to say I was. No, I wasn't. You're wrong. No, I mean, you weren't. I did not hear you breaking up on my end.
Okay. All right.
Let's see what else is going on. Oh, show titles. Show titles is the place to be.
Where did this
Show
go?
titles.
It went to trash? What?
Did you trash the show? Don't trash the show. Oh, we have a breakaway title lead.
I think it is pretty good.
Oh, okay, here we go. That's right.
Stop. Pebble Time.
I mean, how many other people have used that so far, though?
I mean, who
Yeah,
cares?
but it's
Like stop Pebble Time specifically, or just?
I mean,
riffing off?
F them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think we'll just use it.
OneDrive to hold them all.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
although vetting the rabbits is also nice.
I like Artemis sells pea cells by the seashore.
There's a lot of good ones in there.
Yeah.
Artemis hunting for carriers.
Ah,
Clever.
Very Greek. And congratulations, Patrick, that Greece will stay in the Eurozone for another few months.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's for 4 months till they figure something else out.
Or, they could always get angry again in the 4 month. I wouldn't pass it behind.
Oh, yeah, this is not over. That is for
I
sure.
thought there would be more Waffle House title jokes.
Maybe
Are we of the Waffle House generation? Have we not passed on the beauty of Waffle House to the next generation? Is that the problem?
I'll tell you a Waffle House. You want to hear a Waffle House story?
Is this the one you were telling in the chat room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell it.
Okay.
Tell it anyway.
So, yeah.
Anyway.com.
So, so in 2005, I went to Biloxi, Mississippi to cover Hurricane Katrina, and it was not nearly as difficult as what it was like in New Orleans. I will just say that. Like in Biloxi, it was a regular, terrible, bad, awful hurricane, not a cataclysmic event. That being said, it was still, we were living on a boat, and there were a lot of people sharing one little boat shower. And it was definitely not your normal life. And so one thing I will say about Waffle House is because they are centered primarily in the southeast and extending a bit into the west, they are very good at recovering from hurricanes. They have I have a hat that says Waffle House Hurricane Recovery Team, because every time there's a hurricane where there's a Waffle House, they send in this team to get the Waffle Houses back up and running as fast as possible, so people who are displaced from their homes can have a sense of normalcy and at the very least, have somewhere to go to eat some food. And both Walmart in Biloxi, and we were actually in, where were we? Yeah, we were in Biloxi. Both Walmart and Waffle House were the first two back up in that town. And it was, I can't really describe how unbelievably amazing and important it was to be able to walk into a Waffle House, sit down, and eat breakfast. I mean, it was, that brand has my loyalty forever. So, you can make a ton of fun jokes about Waffle House and who's there and is it clean and blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you something. But
not in Jenny's presence.
Yeah. No, not in my presence. You can't mess with Agent Carter, and you can't mess with Waffle House. So, if you've never been to a Waffle House, their commitment to continuing to clog your arteries after a hurricane is really an amazing thing.
And now you can even get your packages delivered there after the hurricane.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that little aspect of it.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, probably the road and the infrastructure is.
Of course, yeah. But, if you don't have an address right then and the roads are open again, wow.
Yeah.
That's one less thing to worry about.
I wonder if that's what made Waffle House sort of be aware of that.
Maybe.
That's really interesting. Anyway, I think they're a super cool company, and there's something really lovely about going into any Waffle House and seeing all the regulars, no matter where in the South you are, no matter what time. Like, these are people that know each other and care about each other, and it's pretty great.
Now
Waffle House family. I've never been to one.
Oh, you got to check it out.
I want to go to one even more, but I want to go to one like in the South somewhere.
You do. You definitely, if you go to I don't know if you ever go to, what's the one in Atlanta, the big one where Jerry's getting married. Dragon Con. If you go to Dragon Con.
Yeah, we could make it. We'd have to take a cab or get maybe Strickland could drive us out.
There's nothing in the downtown area of Atlanta that anyone can recommend.
Yeah, you need like a roadside Waffle House in sort of like outside of Atlanta to really feel it.
The Waffle House in St. Louis, I think it's the one on the east side that I went to most often. I can vouch for. It's classic. It's awesome. I've also been to them all over Louisiana and Texas as well.
I actually I've always avoided chains. Like every time I've been in the South, it's always eating at a local barbecue or. Mm-hmm.
I get you. Like going to a McDonald's in the South, or it's going to be the same as going to McDonald's anywhere in the U.S. It's not any kind of when you're on vacation, you want an experience. But I like Waffle House because I know exactly what I'm going to get, and yet still get local flavor, like Jenny's talking about. Like I don't know.
You mean the customers?
The customers and the staff, both.
Yeah.
Was it what's the not Crunchy Crock? That's
Country Crock or no, I want to say Crate and Barrel. Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel. I was really disappointed.
Crate and Barrel and Cracker Barrel. Very different clientele.
I was expecting better.
Different barrels.
But we did go to a great, at the time, fried chicken, fried catfish place called the Cock of the Walk outside of Little Rock. It was really good. Our
So
waiter
much
looked exactly
rhyming.
like a young Elvis. Even had the little sideburns. And they flipped out a little cornbread for everyone for each because it was a large party. But they cooked them in the small little iron skillet. They would flip it and then they just drop it on your plate. Oh, it was great.
Yeah,
I'm sure I killed myself or shortened my lifespan by a couple of years eating there, but
I'll just win an Oscar.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
I want one of those Lego Oscars. Those things are cool.
Those were cool.
I mean,
They
I'm
have
sure I
Lego
can buy
Oscars?
Lego bricks.
the Lego Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they were singing "Everything Is Awesome" from the Lego Movie, they had people handing out Lego Oscar replicas
Yeah.
of the Oscar made out of Legos to people in the audience. Who, no offense, have already gotten a lot already. Seems kind of. It's like the whole $160,000 worth of gifts or whatever for the nominees, even if you don't
Well,
win.
it's all crap, and you have to pay taxes on them, though.
Did you see?
You have to
did
pay
you see
taxes on anything
episodes?
in the U.S.
Have you guys
Yeah,
seen the
but-
episodes
but
on
in
the?
this case,
You have to pay taxes on lottery winnings. That's why it's kind of it's kind of a.
You have to pay taxes on talking to Patrick.
Yeah.
I'll be expecting your payment soon. But in the case, on lottery, you're earning money, so at least you have something to pay with. But in these, Oscar things, you can get some crappy product that you don't want for $4,000. That, it's ridiculously expensive stuff that you have to pay real money for in taxes.
Because it would cost real money to sell or make, and that's the actual.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, but
I mean, it's a
something
gift.
that-
I mean, anything over $1,000, you have to report to the IRS. Like, if I went to Vegas and won $500, I wouldn't have to report it, unless like my total winnings for the time and I was in Vegas exceeded $1,000.
We
Although it
used to have
could've
to
changed.
deal with that all the time with contests at both Tech TV and CNET.
Oh yeah.
And I remember at Tech TV, we would actually write the rules in such a way that we could say you'll win $1,000, but then we would give you like $1,300 so that you could pay the taxes without and still keep the amount that we had advertised as you
So
win.
you're paying the taxes for them, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying I don't necessarily want those amazing $160,000 worth of gifts if I'm going to have to pay, $60,000.
Maybe it's like only $140,000 worth of gifts, and then there's just $20,000 cash in there for you to pay your taxes with.
See, that would be great. But all those gift bags are basically marketing things by those companies. Like, ooh, I'm going to send my product to so and so.
Have you
Oh my
guys? Do you guys ever watch episodes starring Matt LeBlanc? It's that really funny Showtime
Oh
show.
no, is it good? It looks really good.
Incredibly funny show that really just jabs at the show business industry. And they just recently did a gift basket, a gifting suite episode. And Roger's right. There's a high price to pay for that, which is every celebrity that takes one of the products in the gifting suite has to take a picture. And so there's a running joke about that. It's like you are endorsing. The trade-off is you get free stuff, but you're endorsing the product. So be careful what you pick up.
I know, and for most people, it's not a big issue if like they give you keys to like a new Mercedes or an Audi or something. But I mean, if you get keys to
It's a big deal to me.
is it to you? No, it'd be great. I think people wouldn't mind taking their photo next to the
Oh,
car.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but if you get like a Yugo, it's like, well, no, I don't. I'd rather not. It's after a point in your life. When money doesn't matter, you can be a little more selective. But when you're eager, hungry, and
When does that food come?
When do I get to that?
you won't, not in this day and age,
Right.
unless you're like super lucky or create something super.
Actually, I don't know. I mean, it's not like money doesn't matter, but after a certain level of income, I guess it shouldn't matter as much. It doesn't change happiness, I guess.
The
no,
motivation
it
for
doesn't.
acquiring it changes after a certain level, is the way I would put it. Because when you're poor, you want it to pay your bills and eat.
Exactly.
And then after a certain level, it becomes like, oh, well, I want some nicer things. And then after a certain level, it becomes, well, I can change and influence things. And for some people, it's just like a status symbol to be like, my bank account is this much.
I guess that's what I'm saying. If it becomes I can buy an Xbox One and a PS4, if that's the level of issues you're having in your life, I'm not even talking about Mercedes or buying this or that car. If you can feed your family and clothe them and all of that, not sure it should
Why would
matter more.
Well, you know why? But see, that's why there's an entire industry to convince you otherwise.
Yeah.
You need this product to make your life complete.
And that's why.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode of East Meets West. And I'm also out of the post, so thanks everybody for watching.
Bye.
Bye.